Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is the playoff season now for the Collegiate Start League. We are here in the Hearthstone division. Unfortunately, No Modogan could not join me today, but instead we have a special guest caster with us, Chandyland. How are you today?
Hey Lucia, I'm doing good. Getting ready to cast some good games.
So, with the expansion coming out, have you kind of played around with these new decks?
So I haven't gotten to week two yet, actually, but I played around with the week one cards a bit. I think the Reno Jackson decks are definitely really interesting,
Mm-hmm.
bringing a lot of new flavor to the meta.
Yeah, definitely. So, the first games that we will have for you today, the series will be between California State Fullerton and McGill University. Both of these schools made it through their brackets with a 3-1 record. So not perfect, but obviously, good enough to make it through. I don't really know much about these players. I mean, we've definitely seen most of them play throughout the season. But just curious, Chandyland, have you heard of any of the players from these two teams?
I don't think I have. I'm not sure if Don is the same player from Asia server, but there's a player I know on Asia server named Don.
Well, we'll have to see. We're just getting these games set up here. As you guys know, this is the first Hearthstone season for CSL. We played through the season where all the schools were divided into divisions of 4 or 5 schools each. And now we are here in the playoffs. The top 2 schools from each division has made it through. And the game format is still the same. It will be a best of 5. Both teams are only allowed to play each class once, whether that class wins or loses. And each player as well is only going to play once, as seen with the lineup. And of course, just a standard best of 5, so first team to 3 games will win.
Yeah.
So, Chandyland, I guess most tournaments obviously don't run a format like this. Do you see any particular strategy or things that you would do in such a lineup?
Okay, so I guess it's similar to Conquest, except that even if you lose to the class, you can't play it again, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess knowing that, like, if you see an unfavorable class go out, then you can like safely play the counter or something that's not easily countered by it. So let's say you see the control warrior get beat down, then you can safely queue freeze mage.
Mm-hmm.
Might change your strategies a bit.
So what kind of decks would you say you'd want to play out early for these teams?
So I guess if you have a hard counter deck, I might try to hold on to that.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe play like the most neutral decks first, say like Druid.
Yeah, that's fair. I think we've seen a lot of druids getting played out early as well. So we're just waiting to get these players started up.
Mm.
Now, you've been laddering pretty hard this season, right?
Yeah, I did a bit. I did a bit of tryharding.
Oh, what did you play?
The last run, so I was playing Rogue for a few days in the season, on a bet with my friend that I couldn't get Rogue. I couldn't get to Legend with Rogue, and I gave up after a few days, and then I just switched over to Tempo Mage.
Yeah. Oh, well. I mean, I think we've seen more Rogue and Shaman, especially after BlitzCon, but, it feels like that's more of an anomaly than something that people are actually picking up and playing.
Yeah, beginning to see a bunch of Rogue decks recently because of the expansion. People are trying out like all kinds of like Death Rattle, Raptor Rogues. That's been interesting.
Hmm. Yeah, sorry, just a bit of technical difficulty. For some reason, my Skype messages are deciding not to send through. So, trying to get a hold of these players in game. And hopefully we'll get started shortly here. Alrighty. And looks like game is ready to go. Yeah, looks like we're starting it off with a mage mirror matchup. Now the question, of course, is will this actually be, you know, a mirror matchup in terms of decks, or will it be something like tempo mage versus freeze mage? You know, I could pull out a surprise mech mage, but I think at the moment tempo mage and freeze mage are the big ones.
Okay. So from Juke's side, we do see an arc mage. So I'm assuming this is. Actually, can't say too much quite yet because I do see a novice engineer. It's not something we usually see in freeze mage. You might see in something like Malagos freeze mage.
Yep, on my side there's a Healbot, Fireball, Ice Block, and Forgotten Torch. So pretty safe to say it is a freeze mage. So looks like it will be a mirror matchup, but potentially, especially with the expansion coming out, people just kind of tweaking their freeze mage decks. So we'll have to see, you know, how that works out for each player, whether the tweaks really work out for them, or whether that, you know, stuff like that novice engineer, we'll have to see.
Alright. So looks like we are going to be going into freeze mage mirror here. Probably just going to see scientist drop by Jukebox on the side.
Pretty normal start. Just your play some scientist, ping the scientists.
Okay, so Jukebox actually thinking about going for the barrier here instead of the arcane intellect. It's kind of interesting. I guess so. This is also a bit safer on his part. If he arcane intellects and draws into, let's say, second barrier or ice block, it's kind of awkward for him because he's going to have a couple cards he can't get out of his hand.
That's fair, yeah. And if he plays that, and then Stitch pings the scientist, then he'll be able to get both his secrets up.
Right.
So that is definitely an interesting consideration. Generally, of course, you know, you want to draw your cards, but with very specific, you know, things you want to get out as a freeze mage, getting both your secrets out, having that scientist on board. So he's thinking about it, and this is the playoff, so, you know, you don't want... It's a pretty delicate matchup, I would say. So he definitely wants to make the right decisions and decides to play the secret.
So by doing this, he is going to be making sure that he does get the ice block off the scientist here. Which is pretty good for him, making sure his scientist doesn't get no value.
So in a freeze mage mirror matchup, what are you looking to do as the two players?
I think a lot of it comes down to timing. First person to Alex, first person to get a really good fireball turn off with Antonidas. And then towards the end, it just winds down to calculation, I guess. Putting the opponent at like the right amount of health going into fatigue.
Okay. Well, looks like both players drew Frost Nova and Doomsayer. Not really a combination you need in this matchup.
Alright. So Jukebox is probably considering not attacking here in case it happens to be an ice barrier. Reason being, so if he helps Stitch get that first ice barrier proc, then Stitch can play the other ice barrier out of his hand. And what we see in a lot of freeze mage mirrors is the players straight up just don't attack each other for the majority of the game, so that the other player can't get the second ice block out of their hand.
Right, but also it's just 8 extra health you don't need to go through. Like if you're just going to Alex them and then use spells, then there's no reason to pop that armor at all.
Right.
So both players just, you know, chilling out here. Stitch does have Antonidas, Ice Lance, and a coin in hand, so, you know, he could be the first one to get started with his combos. Is there a reason to kill off? I mean, your opponent's not going to attack you, right? So...
Yeah. I'm not sure about the Cone of Cold here, so I can't... I'm not sure... Stitch's hand. Let me try to get it on Stitch's side, too. But Stitch decides to pick off the 2 minions from Jukebox's side. Jukebox is going to be going for the draw this turn. Probably just followed up by playing the Loot Hoarder. Draws into an Ice Lance, not really what he needs right now. Probably what he's looking for right now is Emperor, mostly. Getting the Ice Lances in hand for Emperor is really good, though, especially with the Frostbolt.
I was thinking about not playing the Loot Hoarder, actually, hovering on the hero power, but there we go. The Loot Hoarder comes down. Now, would he be worried about fatigue at all in this matchup?
I think it's something you definitely have to think about. It becomes a lot more relevant after each player has Alex and started burning each other. Because basically, when you run out of burn, you depend on fatiguing the opponent.
Okay.
And it makes a huge difference if one person happens to be like 3 cards ahead, which they are at a 3-card difference at the moment.
Yeah, and it looks like Jukebox's deck composition seems to be like that as well. He's got the Loot Hoarder and the Novice Engineer.
Right.
Now, Stitch, on the other hand, does have an Acolyte, so, Jukebox could think about just letting him draw more cards.
Alright. Jukebox does find the Emperor with that draw, which is going to be really good. Let's see if he decides to do it in his upcoming turn. I would say it's not quite time to do it yet. You only have 2 combo pieces in hand that you want for Antonitis. You want like a really, really strong hand that you can combo a lot of spells with. So, Stitch ends the turn with 7 cards in hand. Acolyte, so Jukebox probably still wants to draw on this turn, but he also does need to keep in mind that he is quite far ahead in cards than his opponent, compared to his opponent. He's actually 5 cards ahead of Stitch right now.
Well, he could Cone of Cold, right, and Ping, if you really...
So if he Cone of Colds and Pings, yeah, he gives Stitch 2 cards. It isn't able to mill Stitch for a card, but looks like Jukebox is gonna try to just like catch Stitch up on this fatigue race. Not draw any more cards of his own for the moment.
It's a pretty delicate game to start out. You'd expect to come out something like, alright, Secret Paladin, versus Hunter or something. You just go for it, but it's like, it's not Control Warrior Mirror, so that's pretty good, but it is a pretty delicate matchup that you just kind of have to think through and play out carefully. Is he thinking of playing the Doomsayer? I mean, that way he doesn't draw any more cards with the Acolyte.
I think he's thinking about it. Looks like he's just gonna go for the Ping here. Another thing, Stitch also being really cautious, holding onto his coin here, probably saving it for an Antonitis combo. Looks like he is actually going to be dropping down the Doomsayer here. He's thinking hard about it. He's hovering over it. It's a valid play if he wants to make sure that he doesn't overdraw.
And he can guarantee to get his secret out.
Right. So if Jukebox wants to go for the Cone of Cold Ping play, he can mill Stitch for 1 card.
Yeah, that's also another consideration. I mean, Stitch doesn't know that his opponent has the Cone of Cold, but any kind of burn spell would be able to mill him for a card. So, keeping that Doomsayer. I think it's a... I mean, it could be, a good risk to take. This way, if he mills an Alex or something, this would be huge.
Alright. Oh, he got exactly
Oh
Alex.
my god. It's like, well,
Wow.
if he yes.
It's pretty wrecked.
Wow.
Yeah, I think Stitch could have been too greedy with the coin there. If he had dished a coin, he could have played around being milled for a card.
Yeah, I mean, and we said having the Doomsayer out works as well, but
Even, yeah, playing out the Doomsayer would have been safer. But looks like this game is gonna be a lot rougher on Stitch's side without the Alex Johnson out. He's gonna have to rely on burning him from full health. And depending on how the players tech their decks, some players will play heal bots, some people will play two heal bots. Like you don't know how much burn you need exactly.
right.
So
Well, we
Stitch is
saw a
probably
heal
gonna have
bot.
to rely on getting a really good Antonidas turn.
Yeah, we saw a heal bot in Stitch's original hand before the mulligan, but I don't know about Jukebox. He's got a
Right.
couple extra draw cards, so potentially, doesn't have that. He is
Right.
deciding to run a Pyroblast, though, so he's got a lot of burn on his side.
Yeah, it's interesting. Jukebox's list has a couple different deck cards. So he uses a Novice Engineer. I'm curious if he only uses one Loot Hoarder.
Mm-hmm.
And he is also running Pyroblast, as well as Cone of Cold. So it seems like he's got a lot of tech cards in there. So I'm not really sure what he's cutting for those.
Well, maybe he's cutting NT Killbot. That would
Yeah,
make Stitch very happy.
right. So Jukebox decides that his hand is good enough for the Emperor this turn. And it makes sense. He's able to discount the Antonidas as well.
Mm-hmm.
Stitch is gonna have to be making some decisions. He's gonna have to start dumping this hand. Looks like
Oh, man.
just the naked wizard.
Wow. Not something you see every day. It's interesting, too, because Jukebox, it is a good hand to Thorson for sure, but with the Doomsayer out, that was guaranteed to die off, whereas, if he played the Thorson on a different turn, potentially he could get Stitches to waste his burn on the Thorson, which then gives him even, less burn to kill him with, so...
Alright. Jukebox draws into the Acolyte here, which is probably not what he's looking for when his hand is already this full.
The Acolyte, the Arcane Intellect. You could go for a Frost Nova Doomsayer combo.
Right.
Or I guess you can save the Frost Nova for Antonidas. Just throw out a Tempo Doomsayer? I don't know.
Yeah, I think you probably want to toss that Acolyte. Toss that Acolyte. Even Doomsayer is probably alright right now. He doesn't have Alexstrasza, so it's not going to be an issue. Looks like he's just going to go for filling his hand up with fireballs this turn.
Yep. He gets Frost
So he's
Blue's
gonna
Icelands. And yeah. Has enough to throw out the Frost Nova as well, so...
Right. And he's still going to be safe. He's only at 8 cards, not in danger of overdrawing. Gets 3 fireballs, seems pretty good.
Stitch in quite a lot of trouble here. I mean,
Yeah.
it's funny because Jukebox, he's the one that managed to get rid of the Alex from Stitch, but he's just deciding to go ahead, I'll just start from 30 health and
Right.
start throwing out those fireballs. He doesn't need Alex either.
Yeah, he doesn't need Alex. I guess he feels safer now that he's like, oh, I can get him down to low health and he can't Alex himself back up.
Mm-hmm.
But Stitch does have this heal bot. He did pick up the heal bot just now. So it could be something we're seeing from him. Looks like, yeah, you just have to take care of the Antonidas first. You can't let your opponent keep getting fireballs. So we also might see him toss out a card here. He doesn't need 2 Frost Novas, but he could also just be saving it for Antonidas. Alright. So Jukebox is picking up Forgotten Torch here, so that's a lot of burn from Jukebox's hand.
Oh boy. So he's got, I mean, he's got all the burn that he needs. He just has to play it in the right order, right?
Right. So he has a couple options here. He could start burning Stitch down. Probably not gonna be using the Pyroblast in this circumstance. Because 9 health becomes a little awkward when all you have in your hand is fireballs.
Well, would you just, I mean, you can Pyroblast and then pop it next turn.
Right. This also works fine though. So
Okay, there we go.
yeah, with the Forgotten Torch, he can. Actually, I feel like this was a little bit awkward.
Yeah,
Like
at
if he
9
if he
health
had
is
used
very
double
awkward.
fireballs this turn, then he could have popped it. He could have popped Stitch at 2 next turn. Actually, this still works out all right, I think.
Yeah, he can double fireball next turn.
Yeah, it still works out the
And
same
then
way. He pops Stitch at 2
Pyroblast.
health.
Yeah. I mean, either way, he has the Pyroblast, so if you pop it without the Pyroblast, that's pretty hard, even with the antique heal bot, right?
Right. Knowing that Stitch doesn't have an Alexstrasza anymore, he's got to rely on that heal bot to get his health back up.
I mean, at this point, Stitch is playing a very defensive game. At the same time, his opponent sort of, ran out of all of his options, right? You know exactly how many fireballs he has. Then at this point, you know he's used a Frostbolt and an Ice Lance as well.
Alright. Alright, we get a Frostbolt pickup from Juice's box. Probably
And
not
actually,
what he needs right now.
the jukebox started, from basically 30 health as opposed to starting at 15. So even if he picks up the Alex, even with the Pyroblast, that's a lot. That's still a lot of health to get through on Stitch's side. So
Yeah, exactly. And if Jukebox ends up picking up Alexstrasza, then it'll be even more headache for Stitch to deal with. Like at this point, Jukebox is probably going to be using defensive Alexstrasza if he uses Alexstrasza at all.
right, exactly. So he can't really use it on the offensive. And Stitch, obviously if he picks up another heal bot, he's going to wait till he gets burned down a little more and just hovering at the sweet spot around 15 health.
Right.
Picks up another Ice Lance, so he could start his own combo. Unfortunately, no Frostbolt to kind of get that started. That's cute.
Just pick off the Doomsayer, stall a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't really need the heal bot. But
right. I mean, that heal bot isn't going to be going face, so if it's not clearing off the Doomsayer, it's just going to be sitting on the board. So Jukebox picks up the Roaring Torch. So he's definitely got more than enough burn to take Stitch out at this point. He just needs to figure out again what's the best sequence to do it in.
I think at this point you just go for it, right? You have both your secrets up. You've got so much burn. There's no way that Stitch would be able to burn him down faster.
Right.
So why not just go for it?
So Jukebox can put Stitch at 1 health this turn. And then next turn he can ping and then just put Stitch on having either a second heal bot or the second ice block. Actually, it would have to be the second ice block exactly because Jukebox has the Pyroblast.
Exactly. But he's going to use the Pyroblast instead.
Okay.
Fortunately, that ice barrier isn't going to do him any good.
Right.
It's basically a dead card. So Stitch going to go on the offense this turn.
Yeah, looks like Stitch decides it's finally time to bring out the Antonitis, get a bunch of fireballs of his own.
Alright. Fortunately, the first Ice Lance is just there to freeze face, and the second one can deal damage. He'll have 3 fireballs of his own now. And the first 4 cards in his hand are basically dead, you know.
Right. Jukebox picks up a scientist here. Probably not what he's looking for. He can, however, take care of Antonitis as well as pop the block for Stitch. Looks like he's going to be going for that. So he's going to be putting on Stitch on having the second block. A second heal bot would actually be fine for Stitch in this circumstance.
Because of the Power Blast.
Right, because he popped him at 6.
That's not going to be useful.
Right.
And also for Jukebox, with the Scientist, if his own Ice Block gets popped, then he can just play out the Scientist and Frostbolt it.
Right.
Ooh.
So Stitch is going to look for the Ice Block here, and he does get it.
Oh my god. Okay.
Nice. Alright, so then he can continue to send fireballs at Jukebox's face.
Now, Jukebox, on the other hand, so he's going to just pop it again this turn, and I think he has it, right?
Right. Should have him, assuming Stitch doesn't have a second heal bot.
Right, so now we're looking for the second heal bot.
So Jukebox actually shouldn't be using the... it's actually kind of problematic for Jukebox because he has to use Roaring Torch because he can't pop him with Ice Block because of the... he can't pop the Ice Block with Frostbolt because of the sequencing he chose.
Yeah.
So he actually... he's going to go for the Roaring Torch here because it's the only way to pop the Ice Block, but he's still not going to have lethal next turn unless he picks up a Fireball or the second Frostbolt.
I think
actually, no, the first Frostbolt was already straight.
Yeah, so if he has a second Ice Lance,
right,
he'll have that. Well, he picks up the Scientist, but now that's not really useful anymore.
Right.
And Stitch has another Fireball, so...
Wow, so this could actually be easily be Jukebox's game.
Yeah.
Because Jukebox
oh my god.
Finds the
Does
ice
he?
fence.
Wow. I mean, to be fair, Stitch top decked his Ice Block as well, so,
right.
You know, it's not like he was terribly misfortuned there, so... 2
Right.
top decks.
But definitely a really, really good recovery from Stitch. Looking from the early game, it looked like Jukebox was really leading. But yeah, it was a really good recovery on Stitch's side. It came down to that last turn.
Right. And both players got their top decks, and that was it. I think he might have had another Fireball, potentially.
Yeah, I think he had one more Fireball from his deck. And you're right, the Ice Lance was the second out.
Yeah. So, it's a pretty interesting game there to start. So, next up we will have Blue Jacket versus Chark 2904, which is not his battle tag. So, I always wonder, you know, like, in other games or, you know, wherever else, you have to make your own ID, and they're like, oh, that's not unique, you know, go tag some numbers at the end of your name, and then you're like, okay, fine. But then you carry that over to BattleNet, and then it's like, whoa, you have 4 numbers, and then you have your battle tag, and then everyone's just running around being rather confused.
Right.
So, we have Jukebox winning that first game. So, it will be McGill University up 1-0. And I guess, you know, since I'm in Canada, I get to cheer for McGill, and since you're in California, you get to cheer for Fullerton, right? Is that how that
Right.
works?
Yeah.
Alright. Which means I'm winning. Hooray. Alright, so after that game, obviously Mage will be out for both sides. It's interesting. You'd think Freeze Maze is more of a reactionary deck. Like, it could do well against, you know, certain specific classes. So it's interesting that both sides decided to bring that out first. It's definitely a deck that's seen a lot more play with the new expansion, and of course with the, wouldn't say death, but with the much less played Patron Warrior, with a lot less warriors on the ladder, then people are starting to pick that up again.
Right.
So it looks like the lineup is not quite what we have today. McGill's lineup's actually different, so it will be Blue Jacket playing against Morked. And just heading into a game here, looks like it will be a Druid versus Paladin matchup. An Ancient of War here in Blue Jacket's opening hand, so also a Force of Nature, so not full-on ramp Druid, maybe just a regular hybrid kind of thing. And we'll have to see what Morked has, you know, if he's running an aggressive Secret Paladin or the more mid-range variety.
Right. So we do see a couple secrets in Mork's opening hand. So definitely a Secret Paladin. Can't tell yet whether it's more mid-range or aggressive version, but we do see a Consecration, so I'm probably assuming it's a more mid-range version. So, yeah, Blue Jacket side, we do see the Force of Nature. It looks like a more mid-range Druid with like an Ancient of War teched in.
Mm-hmm. Pretty standard cards on both sides so far. So in this matchup, which side is more favored, you'd say?
I would say it largely comes down to how good the Secret Paladin start is, and then whether the Druid gets the swipe. I think the swipe is like really, really crucial to winning this matchup.
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, the Living Root's coming out on turn 2 for Blue Jacket. And Morked here, you know, we're thinking it was something more mid-range, but the Secret Keeper coming out here, so there is a little bit of early pressure, and we don't see any secrets in his hand so far, which normally is good, but now with the Secret Keeper, you know, who knows?
Right. So I'd say Blue Jacket is kind of debating whether he wants to use Wrath or Living Roots to take off this Secret Keeper.
What would you go for?
I think I would go for the Wrath. Okay, looks like he's just gonna leave it. He's gonna take a chance and leave it. I mean, that's fine too. I mean, Mork actually doesn't have any secrets in hand. Well, he just drew one, but previously Mork didn't have any secrets in hand, so he would have to top deck one.
Mm-hmm.
But this event is actually going to be perfect in combination with the Knife Juggler.
Right.
Because there's no way Blue Jacket can leave the Juggler up.
Well, a redemption would have been nice, you know. If you kill off the knife, get it back, get it into the muster next turn, but in terms of odds and all that, you generally just kill off the knife.
Right.
And
so actually, I think he goes for the roots here because he's trying to check for a get down afterwards, but now it's a little bit awkward as he's just going to hero power the face.
Right. And yeah, actually, if it, let's see, what else? If it was redemption, he would have been able to clear it off with the Living Roots plus hero power, so that would have been fine. Noble Sack is fine with hero power and the Living Roots. So basically that was the best secret that could happen there for Mort. As long as Blue Jacket doesn't draw a swipe this turn.
Alright. So yeah, this would be the perfect swipe setup for Blue Jacket, but unfortunately, Innervate is not really what he needs right now. Actually, Innervate is not the worst because he could go for the Keeper. Actually, I think just Keeper is fine here. I don't really think you need to Innervate out the Wrath.
Mm-hmm. And one more turn before Mort can play Quartermaster, so it'll give a chance for Blue Jacket to clear off some of those 1/1s.
Right.
If he draws a Quartermaster and then plays out the second muster, though, man. Alright, so he's going to play out the knife this turn. Not gonna wait for the knife and muster combo.
Right. And looks like he's just gonna pick off the Keeper here. So he's like, maybe Blue Jacket didn't have the swipe that turn, but maybe he's like just playing around it.
Mm-hmm. Well, also, he kept his Secret Keeper instead of a 1/1, so he's playing more around the swipe as opposed to Quartermaster, which Blue Jacket might think, he doesn't have. At least not in hand,
Right.
but, less chance of him having that in his deck as well.
Alright. So now, Mort, seeing that Blue Jacket didn't have a swipe, I would feel pretty good about playing Muster into Competitive Spirit here.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like Mort is leaning towards the Loatheb play. It does contest the Druid Claw better.
Right.
Thinking about maybe sending a 1/1 into the Druid Claw, or even potentially using his face, but it seems a little bit risky to be taking 8.
Yeah, there's no reason to take that much damage.
Okay.
So, now it's Blue Jacket's turn to decide if he wants to throw his face into the Loatheb.
Right.
It's good that he's sort of waiting it out here. It's kind of obvious that you're going to play Shredder and Hero Power, but then...
Which one are you hero powering, right?
Yeah, it's more like if you wait a bit, then your opponent doesn't know, that's your only play for this turn.
Right.
So
I do agree with this hero power from Blue Jacket. I think if the Loatheb, there's not really a reason to trade into the Loatheb yourself right now.
Mm-hmm.
The Loatheb's going to be doing that trading by himself anyway. Oh, fine, perfect challenger pickup for Mort right on time.
Oh boy. Challenger into Dr. Boom.
Into Sad Druid.
Yeah.
Oh, we even see a little PM there. We get the well met from Mort.
Oh boy.
Alright, and Mort gets 5 secrets off the challenger. And those are actually Avenge, Noble Sack, Redemption, and Repentance.
Yeah, just missing the competitive spirit in his hand.
Right, so he's only playing 1 competitive spirit in this list, which is pretty typical, I'd say. I think people, typically in this deck, the one with 8 secrets, you also only play 1 Repentance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the Force of Nature could work. So let's see, one of them would have to take out the Noble Sack guy.
Yeah,
The
and against... Right. So I think you're hoping it lands on the Loatheb here. You still
I
can't
think
fully clean
either
off
way,
everything.
yeah. Okay, so this way he gets to keep his shredder. And this way he also knows it's not competitive spirit, and his opponent is playing Repentance, so that Ancient of War is going to have to wait a turn before coming out.
Right.
Why is
Felt a
he
little bit
thinking?
awkward for Blue Jacket there. Yeah, for Morked, I feel like this is a pretty straightforward turn.
It
The
is.
trade,
It is a
like,
little bit tempting. Like, you know,
yeah.
do you think your opponent has a swipe?
I wouldn't even try to break the shredder here. Like if it happens to be, let's say it's a taunt, then you get punished for not attacking as well. I think you just have to go for it at this point. You see that the Blue Jacket doesn't have an answer to the challenger. He's not gonna have an answer.
Well,
Probably
if he
not
had a
gonna have an answer to it
BGH,
this
he would
turn.
have been able to answer
All right.
it. But although I feel like if he had a BGH, would he have? Is there any way to sequence it differently so that if it lands on the Mysterious Challenger, then he would BGH, and if it doesn't, then he'd be able to play his Force of Nature.
I don't think it was the problem was that turn he only had 7 mana. So he couldn't do both. Even if he was on 8 mana and he was able to hero power, I think it would have gone a little smoother for Blue Jacket. Um, but yeah, I also think actually the fact that I think it was actually better if the event had landed on the challenger, it would have gone up to 8 health and he could have traded both of the remaining trees as well as the shredder into it. But landing on the Lotham made it kind of awkward for him.
Well done. Actually, I think did Blue Jacket make a misplay there? Because if he had hero powered and hit the boombot, then there's a chance that the boombot lands on his 3/1, whereas
Right.
he let his opponent hit into the 3/1, and then the boombot would definitely land on his face.
Right. I think yeah, there was a chance that he could have stayed alive for another turn, but it's still like
Yeah,
it's really hard for him to
it's pretty
stabilize.
bad. You know, it's
Yeah.
not like, oh my god, you lost the game, because no, like that was a pretty terrible position, and you know, it
It's
wasn't even
really, really
like,
hard when
yeah.
the paladin curves out like that. It's almost unstoppable if you don't have exactly like BGH in hand.
Yeah. Didn't even need Tyrion at that point, you know, just
Right.
Mysterious Challenger and Dr. Boom did the job. So that will be another game going over to McGill, putting them up at 3-2. And let's see here. Next up, we will have Ice Shield versus Chark. Yes, so it will be Chark playing this turn instead. The lineup's just a little bit different there for McGill. So go ahead and get that started. Chark has the opportunity to take it home for his team, or Ice Shield can finally get started,
Right.
get a game back for his team, so it doesn't just end up being a 3-0, because, you know, we never like those.
Right. So if McGill wins this next game, that's gonna be match point for them, right? Looks like Chark is getting ready.
So the mage has been played, druid and paladin. I mean, those are basically the three strongest classes that we've been seeing.
Definitely 3 very dominant classes in the meta right now.
And we have a warlock versus warlock. Let's see here.
Okay. So it appears to be Demon Handlock from Chark's side. And From iShield's side, we see some cards that typically are running and run in Zoo, but we also see a Zombie Chow, so there's a possibility this could be a Reno list. I have been seeing a
He
lot
has
more
the
like-
two Nerubians, right?
Okay.
Would you run two Nerubians in a Reno list though? Like,
No.
yeah, like
Yeah.
if you're playing a freeze mage, I can see, you know, like you would still run two ice blocks or two ice barriers or something, but Nerubian Egg doesn't seem like the kind of card that you would make an exception for in your Reno deck.
Right. Now it's looking more like standard Zoo from iShield's side, but with the Zombie Chow teched in, maybe to help fend off some more of the aggressive decks. We do see Chark also picks up the turn 1 Zombie Chow, which is going to be really good for him. iShield can just answer it with his own, though.
Yeah, I mean, he's thinking about coining out the egg. If he does that, he can abusive the egg. It won't kill off the Zombie Chow, but it will pop the egg, and then he can play his own Zombie Chow.
Alright.
So it looks like that potentially could be the plan, but in any case, he's going to get the egg down and then see what he wants to do next turn. And it looks like we have a Reno Jackson from Chark.
Okay.
All
So
right.
Chark is running a Reno list. But so it's a little bit awkward for iShield now, because looks like he did really want to go for... Oh, so he's actually just going to go for the double egg into Argus play, it looks like. Kind of slow, but all Chark has on the board is a Zombie Chow right now, so it's not big of a threat at all. Does have the Imp Gang boss to follow up with on curve here.
Yeah, and you don't really want things with one attack against the Imp Gang boss, then, you know, you just keep making more imps.
Right.
Huh. Alright. A reliquary. How do you even say that word?
Reliquary Seeker.
If you have
This
six
is
of their
actually a card
minions-
that's been floating around. Actually, like Reynad popularized a list with this that he reached like top 10 legend with.
Oh. You're always cautious when people say they've reached top 10 legend. It's like, okay, you got to, like, you know, rank 11, you switch to this list, you win one game, and you're like, bam, we got to top 10 legend with it.
Yeah, but apparently I haven't seen too much of it myself, but apparently this is starting to become popular because Reynad was streaming it. But we'll see.
Yeah, iShield has two of them. It's got 3 minions on board. Can throw out the abusive for 4. I don't know. Getting all the way up to 6 seems like a lot of work, though.
Alright, so Chark is actually going to do the double trade into the Zombie Chow here. Not really because Zombie Chow is a threat, maybe more just to like develop a 1-1, build up his board a little bit. But this is going to make it easier for iShield to pop his eggs without worrying too much about like a floating Zombie Chow. So he has a couple options this turn.
Yeah, he can abusive and still get the Sea Giant down.
Right. I think I like abusive Sea Giant a lot. Develops a huge...
He needs
really
more
good board
guys
your
on the
side.
board. Need more guys. Come on. I mean, if you think about 6 minions is a lot. Like, even with Gramok the Impaler, having 4 minions for that, like, I feel like that's enough work already. Having 6 minions to get your Seekers out, that seems like a lot of work. At this point, I'm just cheering for iShield, you know. If you can get both his Seekers down, I mean, chances are he'll probably just get one of them procced, and the other one you're just like, okay, fine. Like, you know.
Yeah. I think you probably need Implosion with that. The deck also runs like Echoing Ooze if he's running the exact same list. Okay, so Chark does have the answer for the Sea Giant here. Is going to choose to leave the Nerubian alone for now.
Yeah, it doesn't have any demons in hand, so nothing
Right.
to... No need to Suicide the Void Caller in.
Right.
Now, iShield does have the Owl that he could use, but... Let's see here.
Little does he know, Chark doesn't actually have a demon in hand.
Well, I'd almost just leave it alone, right? Like, you can
Right.
load
You don't
that.
have to kill it this turn.
You just want to keep as many low cost guys as you can, so you can get up to 6. Like, right now, I'm like, okay, there's 2, and then 3, 4, 5. So if you can... There's no way you can keep your Lothab on board.
No, I think at this point it's going to be really hard for iShield to make effective use of his Reliquary Seekers.
I want it to work. No. Yeah, it looks like it'll just be a body to get taunted up. So, it looks like a pretty straightforward trade there. Void Color into the Seeker, BGH into the 1/1 egg.
Right. Oh, Owl is a really good pickup for a Chark there. So actually, it looks like Chark's going to go for the Shadow Flame. Play it safe.
Yeah, that works out nicely as well.
And iShield's
No!
Reliquary Seeker dreams are dying.
I'm so sad.
He does have a fine turn here, though. I don't really think there's a reason to play the Voidwalker here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, unless you're afraid of Chark having something like Abusive Sergeant.
I mean, it's possible. Alternatively, just, you know, if he picks up something that he wants to suicide in to get it out, but...
Now we see Dr. Boom right on 7. Seems pretty tempting, especially because Chark doesn't have a demon in hand. There's no reason for him to like go out of his way to try to proc this Void Caller.
Right.
Dr. Boom seems to make the most sense on this turn. Mana efficient.
It's
Easy
turn
Dr.
7. Like, we
Right.
can just stop there, right? It's like, oh man, a Dark Peddler. Alright, let's see how this goes. Bloodseal Corsair, Thousand Deckhand, and Soulfire. That's a pretty easy choice there. It picks up the Soulfire. And finally gets the Implosion. So, yes. The Silence on the Void Caller. Which didn't do anything, as we know, but obviously for iShield, he doesn't want anything to pop out there. So, we have an Implosion, we have 3 guys on the board, and a Reliquary Seeker.
Right.
There was hope!
So it's actually a little bit awkward for Chark here. Doesn't really want to use the Hellfire. Like, it seems to line up well with iShield's board, but it's actually Chark can probably clear off most of iShield's board just using the boom bots.
Yeah, if you just trade into the Peddler with Dr. Boom, then you're almost guaranteed to kill off everything else.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't even trade here. I would say put one boom bot into the Owl. Put the other boom bot into the 2/2. Oh, he's actually just not going to trade at all. He's going to go for the Hellfire clear. Okay, Hellfire lethal? Almost there. One off.
Yeah.
Alright, that's kind of a cute play from Chark.
Would it have made sense? No, because he needed the extra damage on the boom bot. So... Could just Soulfire your own face. Yeah. Alright, he's gonna
go for the Gargus.
Oh yeah, you can siphon one, owl
Siphon
the other.
Owl.
And then...
Leaves Chark a clear path to the face.
Yep.
Seems good.
And would not have been able to do that if he just Soulfired Dr. Boom. But
Right.
once again, it's one of those situations where you're like, okay, but he was pretty much dead anyway, right?
Alright.
I'm sure there's probably a Soulfire in Chark's deck. So with that, Chark takes the game? Yeah, Chark takes the game. So that will actually be a 3-0 victory for McGill University.
Alright. Good job, McGill.
And with that, we'll be taking a short break, and when we're back, we'll have the second series for you today. Don't go anywhere.
I hear the rain, and it sings to me the ballad of your name. I'm listening, and the voices echo in my dreams.